Thanks everybody for joining us today. Paulina is always a great presenter, and she has such a command of the eviction process. It's always great to spend a little time with her. I'm Lee Cuellar. I'm with Keller Williams. I'm a real estate agent in Pasadena, California, and Paulina has been a family friend for I'm not sure how many years now. A lot.
A lot.
But anyway, if you have questions, put them in the chat box. Please mute yourselves so that we don't hear any background noise and Paulina can do her presentation in peace. And if there's any materials that we used during this presentation today and you'd like copies of them, just put your email in the chat box and we'll make sure that we get those out to you. All right. So here is Paulina Martignon, Wonder Woman of the eviction world.
You're hilarious, I swear. I love your advertisement. When I saw
it, I'm like, I don't
know if I could identify with this, but I'll roll with it because you scheduled it.
I thought Wonder Woman was appropriate. I thought it was pretty cool.
Very. Thank you. Well, welcome all. Thank you for making it. I know it's been a crazy 2 years, right? And in my 16 years of doing evictions, we've never had so many hurdles, so many changes in the law. I want to say we've had about 6 different changes in a year and a half. So right when we get a handle of one thing, it's fluid. It's very fluid and transitional. So with that said, all the information you're going to receive is up to date until, I want to say, September. We'll check back in at the end of September. Yes.
Right.
So as we know, the temporary COVID bill that was initiated at the beginning of the pandemic, it actually doesn't have an expiration date until the 2024. So meaning that the government, senators could make changes throughout until then. It is better than the proposed 10 years that initially they wanted to go with. And because luckily, thanks to the recall efforts, there's the bill that just got rolled out is a lot more favorable to landlords than the last one. So my goal today is to explain, hopefully, and not confuse you even more. I know some clients tell me, oh my God, it's so confusing. I'm like, I know, ignorance is a bliss. Trust me, once you learn a little bit, you need to learn so much more. It is, and you really don't have issues until you have to face a situation in court. Prior to that, anything anyone does could be just fine until you have that renter that gives you issues, and then we have to go to court. And at that time, that's where we encounter the landlord police. Prior to that, there's no landlord police really. So everything we do is attempting to avoid the landlord police once we need to get there by making sure that every step is done correctly, that a landlord knows what they're doing. Because at this point, if you're choosing to do something wrong, you know the consequences. It's not going to be a surprise and you're ready for them. And I mean, this last year, we've done evictions in areas that I didn't even think it was going to be possible, but landlords are fed up and they're pushing the envelope, and we are too. And some of them are successful, and some of them we have to stop them and close the file because, we could get hit with a harassment lawsuit or a habit lawsuit. And we don't want to expose to our clients to that either. Without further ado, I'll do a screen share. I will be taking questions in between just to make sure that the information is being observed. And let's see, I know my accent sometimes gets in the way. So if something is not too clear, please feel free to ask. I don't mind. I've been living with this for a while now. Okay. So, I mean, for those that don't know me, my name is Paulina Ramirez Martignon. I've been doing this for 16 years, somewhat dates me. And we are now specializing mainly in the rent control, the fluid rent control. To give you an idea, LA County itself, we're dealing now with between 26 different rules and regulations. As such, there's no way when someone has a quick question that we actually have an answer, because we could misguide a client because their property could be subject to a whole different set of rules. And that is why we now do require consults, because we were giving quick information without knowing the background, and it was creating issues. As such, we no longer answer quick questions because there's no such thing. We will email you general information, and if that doesn't answer your question, then we could proceed with the consult. Now, the agenda overview is mainly about what type of evictions are allowed, rent, how to handle the rent issue, the new bills, tips, and of course the fee schedule. The Q&A will be throughout, so we can make this interactive, and I won't bore you so much. And straight to what type of evictions could we do? So I'm going to focus, this is outside of LA. I'm going to discuss LA County after. So I discuss that outside LA because that's the easiest area to start with. San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County, San Bernardino, and Riverside, they don't have their own moratorium, so they are following state law. So under state law, we could do evictions for landlord occupancy or buyer move-in. If we're going to do an eviction for a buyer move-in, it is important that the tenant is not under a lease. It needs to be on a month-to-month. Also, we do need a purchase contract, but we do not need escrow to be open or closed, which is awesome, because if you have a purchase contract, that's sufficient to get started on that. And thanks to the new bill, AB 832, that just got released last June 30th, substantial rehab notices are now allowed outside LA County. Okay, inside LA County, we cannot do substantial rehab yet, but we could do landlord occupancy evictions now in LA County. Now, LA County comes with a huge caveat. Tenants must be up to date with rents. And if the renter is, example, over the age of 63, the landlord needs to be over the age of 63. If the renter is disabled, the landlord needs to be disabled. If they're just healthy adults, then it doesn't matter. But only if they're over a certain age or disabled is where they're still protected from the eviction process. Now, breach of lease and contract evictions are only possible if it's not for an emotional support animal or for and not for additional occupants. Right now, due to the pandemic, the additional occupants is frozen everywhere. The reason being is the theory is if a renter is losing their home or they're close to being without a home and they move into somebody else's home, that shouldn't be a reason for eviction. As such, that is frozen throughout. Now, the non-payment of rent cases that are allowed to be filed are after the 15-day notice is issued. And there's a new bundle of 15-day notices. And after the presentation, if you're interested in emailing our team, we will email you the bundle, the new bundle. Disclosure, I won't have them ready till like Friday. We're still working on them. They're a little bit more complex than what I thought they would be. And I just want to make sure we simplify it. Anywho, the new 15-day notice pretty much discloses that the landlord does need to apply for the rent relief program. And it gives the renter 20 days. I know it's 15-day notice, but it's technically 20 to cooperate and respond to that rent relief application. If the renter does not or continues to ignore that, then after 21 days, the landlord could safely proceed with an eviction. Okay. Now, public health and safety and illegal activity are good to go in either county, LA County or outside counties. I'm going to go ahead and take questions from this slide if there's any. Feel free. All right, so I'm going to move on. Rents. Rents is being handled in two different phases. Phase one is rents from March 2020 through August 2020. At this point, these rents are non-evictable because in eviction courtroom, the statute of limitations to go after rental debt is 12 months. So that phase one is out the window. However, it could be pursued in small claims after November 1st. Of course, hopefully it doesn't get extended, but as of right now, that's the new date. I do have clients that have been doing small claims and they've been getting judgments. So this is what the law says, but people are filing lawsuits and they are getting approved by judges. That's just for your information. In the event, you know someone that has filed and did get approved. Now, phase two, it's rents due from September 2020 through September 2021. That is evictable if the tenant is non-responsive to the new phases of the 15-day notices. Now, this is the way it works. I'm going to put Josh as an example. You're my tenant. You owe me rents. You haven't paid me even the 25%. So I issue you the new notices letting you know that in order for you to get protection from being evicted, you have to issue me a hardship COVID disclosure. You have to apply or cooperate with the rent relief program. And the 25%, you have to do that within the 21 days, but you have until October 1st, 2021 to give me 25% of the rent due from that year, September 2020 to September 2021. Now, this is a caveat. Tenants are not mandated to pay monthly. They could pay in a lump sum after October 1st and still get that protection. So as long as they are cooperating with the rent relief program and they did issue the financial distress form. Now, I'm going to move on to the next one before I take questions, because this next one talks about the rent relief program. So this is the amended rules, which is a little different than what we had a couple of months ago. So landlords have to issue the new disclosures by July 31st. Once again, our office will have them ready by the end of the week. You could email our team, we'll put you on our queue and we'll upload and send you those documents once we have them. If a landlord already applied to the state or the local rent relief program, they do not need to reapply. They will be automatically renewed, and they're gonna get paid 100% of the rental debt. Before, it was 80%. They wanted you to take a pay cut. Well, Newsom wants to continue in office, and he's proposing that he's going to pay everyone's rental debt. So as long the priority now has also extended. Before, the priority was only for tenants that made 50% or less. And then from 51% to 80% was second priority. Now 80% and under, they're all priority. 80 to 100 is maybe we have money left over. There is $5.3 billion available just for the rent relief program. So the theory is that our landlords will, in essence, qualify to get the rent relief 100%. Now, before a landlord continues with an eviction, they do have to show proof that they applied for the rent relief program, that they reached out to the renter, that they did their due diligence, and the renter's still ignoring all notices. I'm gonna open it up for questions. I know that was a lot to digest.
So this is the new for the state, right? Because I have tenants who applied to like the city, for example, Long Beach, but we never looked at the state. But now the state one is the one that just opened or is available, right? Something like that.
Good question. So technically, even the city is through the state. This money is coming from both the state and federal. But what's going on is that some cities that have a large population are creating their own little offices to facilitate the payments. So even if you applied through Long Beach or LA City or whatever city had their own program, the funds are still coming from the state and federal program. Now, that reminds me that by September 15th, all landlords shall get paid, plus all this information is going to be public information. The Housing is Key will have a site where you could enter the person's name and property address, whether it's the tenant or the landlord. And it's going to show a list of how many times the tenant applied, how much money they received. And the reason that they're doing it this way is to make sure to avoid renters from applying from two different addresses or landlords. It's a way of them controlling that money doesn't go into the wrong hands.
So if the city paid out already, for example, Long Beach paid out, then the tenant can go back and
I know that they paid the first round. The first round was back, if I'm not mistaken, April through like September of 2020. Then they reopened it on March 15th. So if you applied in the new era, which is March 15 until now, because the website is still open, I'm going to put it here for you all. Housing is Key. Then no one has gotten paid yet through the second wave. And the reason being is because they still need to get organized. People are just now getting, case managers assigned to their cases and emails letting them know, I'm your case manager, I need this, I need that. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I did get an email from some of my renters saying that I needed to update the rent log because they're gonna pay the 100%, and I needed to sign a W-9. So if I get any money, I'll let you guys know. Okay, I have a couple of questions on the chat that I'm gonna address. Question is, can you repeat which rules apply to LA County? So LA County is freezing still like 80% of the evictions. The slight shift that they made, for lack of a better word, is that landlords that own a single family home that need to move into their homes, they could now issue those 60-day notices. So as long as the renter has not issued a COVID distress form or the tenant doesn't owe rents. Okay, and believe it or not, we have a couple of those that are in transactions, and that needs to get issued. Now, the next question I got, what if our tenant already got relief last year but never disclosed that information? That's a good one, Josh. So the money was supposed to go to the landlord. You could sue them for it. And the only way the renter would have received the rent relief is if the landlord did not cooperate with the application process. And if that was the case, the tenant only received 25% for them to pay over to the landlord, that 25% to buy eviction immunity during that era. Does that make sense? Okay. If it didn't, let me know.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Paulina?
Yes.
Okay, so 2 questions. One is, in regards to LA County, you said if they have responded to a notice with, declaration of COVID hardship, right? So I think in the past year, I think there have been several mandates to serve our tenants with different types of notices. And so are the tenants required to respond per each notice, or is it as long as they did it once, then they're kind of like, they're good? Or do they need to respond each time?
They have to respond each time. And in theory, they're supposed to send you a hardship every month that they're not paying the rent.
Got it. So if they did it once, but like last year, but then in recent notices they are not responding, then that could potentially be a ground for eviction.
So the key here is that the landlord actually acts within the time frame. So at this point, it's a new set of laws, so it's new notices. So let's say you serve your new notices by Friday. If the renters ignore that, I would suggest take action within a month or two before September, because after September, we're going to get a new set of rules, and then that means new notices. So I had evictions that we were getting ready to file on the old rules, but because there's new rules, now we have to kind of redo the paperwork and redo the notices, because now the landlord will always have the burden of proof to show that they did everything under the law requirements.
Got it. That's helpful. And then second question is, we applied for the rent relief, and I think we believe our tenant did as well, but then they did not, upload like all the documentation that's needed, right? So technically they did, but really no one's going to qualify for anything, I don't think, unless they can prove that they're in that income bracket, right? So how does that factor in? Or is that like, well, you got to wait for the case manager and kind of a wait and see thing? Or like, does that count as
good
cooperation?
Question. They have 20 days to respond to their end of things after you serve those 15-day notices. So what I would recommend you to do is call the case manager, see what documents are in queue. When you send the notices, letting them know, okay, this is what you're in queue for. You have 21 days to react, type of thing, or to act rather. Another thing came up, and I just left my brain right now, but I'll come back. When I come back, I'll let you know, Josh.
Thank you.
No problem. Jose, you have a question.
Yes, thank you so much, Paulina. I have a question in regards to investment opportunities or investment properties. You said that any landlord that has an investment property or has a home, so to speak, that they're renting, would that negatively affect them, or would that come up as a distressed property, or could that potentially affect them down the line in an escrow type of situation if someone were to buy that property from them?
Okay, so are you asking me, I'm not sure if I understand your question, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So you're asking in the position of a buyer, if it makes sense for them to invest into a property that it's distressed due to the renter not paying?
Correct. For a landlord, like I know you said that the landlords can file a petition to get the back owed amount of rent. Could that negatively affect the property when it comes time for that property to be sold? Would that negatively?
I don't think I am equipped to answer that question because I'm not in the real estate business, but from my experience and what I have seen, when a renter does owe rent, it does diminish the property value. As such, I have seen properties sold for less when there's renters are not cooperating. My recommendation to scenarios like that, which is what investors kind of look like for properties in distress, because they come in and do a buyout offer. A buyout doesn't necessarily mean you have to give them money. It could mean that you're waiving rents that they owe. So as long as they cooperate with the rent relief program, because now with the new changes in the law, even if the tenant vacates, they could still qualify for the rent relief program, so the landlord could get paid. So we've actually been working on a lot of buyouts that has been keeping us busy, thank God, because every area has different regulations for the buyouts. But yes, you could do a buyout. This is going to save you the legalities or the headaches of going through an eviction or waiting for the government to allow you to proceed. And if you're the buyer, you're most likely going to request the unit for a lesser amount because you are taking on the headache. If you're the seller, you might sell it as like, hey, there's rent relief money. This is a tax write-off. You could buy them out as a new owner. So it depends the position that you're playing, what the strategy would be.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much, Paulina.
Not a problem. Great question. I'm going to go over some foreseen technicalities and then ask more questions. And it's bothering me, Josh, that I was going to mention something about your scenario and it just left me, but I promise I'll come back. So Late fees cannot be requested during this time. So as long as we're under a state of emergency, there's certain things that are off the table. Number one is rent gouging. Let's say your property is not subject to rent control. You cannot increase more than 10% until we're no longer state of emergency. Same thing with late fees on residential, not commercial. Commercial falls under different structure. Now, I know it's confusing and a lot of people think we're out of a state of emergency because a lot of things are reopening. But so as long as the governor doesn't declare us out of that, we're still going to be under those rules, guidelines, eviction moratorium. It is projected that we may get released from the state of emergency by October, but it's extra sweet money that the federal government is sending down to California. So I don't know where's the incentive. We'll see. We'll see what happens. That's I guess, a different story. Now, when there is a sale in the property, before it was very traditional that the rents owed would be transferred onto the buyer as an incentive, like here you get to go after my debt. But as of February 1st, 2021, and until further notice, that's no longer allowed. So for example, if you do a tenant estoppel certificate, you do have to disclose there if the renter owes rents. And then once escrow closes, the buyer becomes responsible to collect from the day he becomes the owner and on, but not for the old rents. So the seller could still go after that rent, but they can no longer reassign it. Let's see, landlord must notify tenant of the rent relief program, where we discussed that landlords shall issue monthly courtesy reminders of running balance so the tenant knows where they're at. Rental agreements must be updated with the new governing law. So this was actually enacted since January 1st, 2020, but COVID, it's like a big blur and overshadowed all these other rules that were in place, but actually still need to be followed. So if you have a rental agreement or your clients or you are using a rental agreement that's older than December 2019, don't use it. You need to update that. Why? Because now is the obligation of the landlord to notify the renter what type of rules that property is subject to. It could be subject to no rent control. However, if you don't say that, technically you are automatically under state rent control because you didn't exercise your right to be under no rent control. I know, boom, I don't get it either, but that's the way it's written. Let's say you're under state law. You have to say you're under state law. If you're LA City, Culver City, Pasadena City, whatever rent control rules, it must be disclosed to the tenant. Any illegal rent increases will come back and bite us in the behind. So it's very important that when we do a case analysis, we go through the whole history, we clean up. Anything that's not done correctly, even if it's 20 years old, must be cleaned up because it will come back. Questions before I move on to layered rent control. And I will be discussing rent increases because I know a lot of people think that that's not a possibility, but that's not true. It's not a one size fits all.
So Paulina,
yeah, I have one question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So Paulina, where do the landlords get updated forms if they're not working with an agent? Where do they get the updated forms?
Very good question. I'm sorry, guys. I know most of you guys are agents. But even if you're using agent forms, I've seen agents use the right forms, but don't fill out the right box. Even unclicking or not clicking a box makes the form incomplete, which means it's no good. So it's not about having the right form or not. It's about knowing what applies to that particular scenario. As such, I do not recommend to do your own paperwork, just like I don't recommend for you to do, your own Botox. If you do that, I don't know, taxes, divorce, it could get messy and complex, and you don't know how strong your paperwork is until you need to fight with it. Okay, so don't wait until then.
Question: What if the
Yeah.
tenant refuses to sign a lease agreement, like a renewed lease agreement, and the lease has expired for about a year already?
Good one. If it's LA City or unincorporated LA, unfortunately, you cannot force them, but you could give them something similar to what they had before. So in other words, you cannot come with a one-page agreement that they had before, and now you have 16, unless they agree. But if they don't agree, it needs to be something similar that they have to sign. If otherwise, if it's something extremely different, they don't have to sign. If you're outside LA City or unincorporated rules, that's one of the reasons you could evict. Not right now, after COVID is over. For example, state rent control has it in their moratorium that if a tenant doesn't sign a new lease, then they're terminating their own tenancy.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let me go to the next slide. So layered rent control. I'm not going to touch so much into this because it could get very confusing, but I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. Just know that I know people tell me, well, wait, there's state rent control. I'm in LA City. Why do I have to listen to LA City rules if there's state rent control and I like those better? I know, right? We don't get to pick and choose what we like. Unfortunately, what applies, it's locally first. Local rules prevail. Second is county. Third is statewide. So example, let's say you live in the city of Whittier. Whittier does not have rent control. Okay, so you don't have to worry about local rules. So now the next question is, are there county rules? Right now, we do have county rules. So that's where we get stuck. Let's say a property is in Chino Hills, but in the site of San Bernardino, right? Well, Chino Hills doesn't have rent control. San Bernardino County doesn't have rent control. Now they may be subject to state rent control. For example, Texas doesn't believe in rent control. So they only have to worry about the federal, the CDC. So when there's news about the CDC doing something in our, really that doesn't apply to us because we have stricter rules to follow. And that explains the layered rent control in a jiffy. If you want detailed info, I'm gonna have to ask detailed info in order to properly assess. Questions here? Right. Time flies. Can you believe it's already, what, 30 minutes? I'm holding everybody hostage a little over. Almost done, I swear. Okay. Please complain, do something, write to them, email them. Governor Newsom is not liking the bad rep they're getting, so maybe that will help. Here's the information so you could write and pester them about what you think. In my opinion, it's a tyranny, but let them know how you feel. We serve realtors, investors, property managers, and landlord community, and we really don't help landlord or tenants unless they've been our clients. Counties, we do Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and LA County. The services, we do landlord consulting. We need to teach people how to landlord because this is complex stuff. And next thing you know, right now we're in the era of lawsuits, landlord lawsuits. So the defense firms are slow on work. They don't have evictions to defend. So what are they doing? Suing landlords for mistakes that they're making. So don't fall into that pool. Just make sure that you have the proper guidance. There's a lot of offices that work differently and they offer different services. You could work with me, you could work with them, but so as long as you're not getting your information from online, because that does not mean it applies to you. You may be following the right laws for a different type of scenario that your property is not subject to. So that's not smart. Protect your investments. We do case analysis, we do tenant buyouts. That if I cannot stress enough to take matters into your own hands versus an eviction is your last resort right now. We're only doing that because that's our last kick. Prior to that, we're trying to do a buyout. We're trying to do Work with the tenant. This is not the time to simply go into court with evictions because the law is not on our side. We do rental agreements, legal letters, rent increases, demand letters, small claims. Commercial evictions are still going. That's the only area that's freezing commercial evictions for non-payment of rent is LA County. Anywhere else they're not, but we could still do 30-day notices in LA County. So that is still a possibility. Fees, this is the fun part. I know you guys don't want to hear it, but I have to disclose it because then I get complaints like, Paulina didn't tell me you guys were going to charge me. I'm sorry, guys, I have to keep my office open. Otherwise, I'll be watching Maury and eating bonbons throughout the day instead of helping landlords fight. Anyhow, we do charge $60 for half an hour. And now more than ever, people need a lot of help. So what we created, kind of like a win-win for our clients, where we have monthly membership program. And actually it's been, I didn't think it was going to be something that people would want to be interested in. And we have 40 members in it now. So the monthly membership program is unlimited consulting. It's like paying $5 a month and you get unlimited consulting, a discounted rates, a paperwork review. You don't need an appointment. You get my cell phone. Please don't text me 24/7. No, I'm joking. Meaning you get direct access when you need it. No appointment necessary. So in the office, regular clients have the case managers to book their appointments. I'm dealing with membership clients only. So if interested, please let us know. I'll send you a list of what the membership includes. You get monthly newsletters, information of what's going on, and Q&As. We do monthly Q&As. Anyhow, we also have bundle pricing available in the event you have a scenario and you have a lot of properties, we need to do multiple stuff. We also bundle things up to help our clients out. And with that, I'm 100% complete and available for further questions. Mayra, will this recording be available? I think it is, right? Lee, you're on mute.
Yes.
So, Lee, do you want to put in your email in the chat so you could send, so they could request? Okay. So take advantage, ask away. Lee, you're still on mute. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yes.
I have a client, a seller in Panorama City, and he has a two tenant, they're not paying rent, and he wants to sell it. What's the best bet? I mean, he needs to negotiate a buyout or he needs to evict?
Yes, this is a duplex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, duplex in LA City, that's LA City law. Yeah, buyout.
Okay.
Otherwise, tell us is somebody else buys a headache or buy them out and you make the profit by allowing the cash flow once again with renters are actually paying.
Yeah. Buy out before selling it, correct?
You could buy out before selling and the value becomes a lot better during this time frame. Properties without renters are actually gold right now.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric.
I would like to have your information, please. I didn't.
Well, of course. Let me throw it in the chat box.
Thank you.
And anyone interested in the slides and in the notices that we will have ready by the end of the week, you could email our team at MT Evictions. Go ahead and request and you'll get it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to mention, anyone that mentions Lee Queller for this presentation will get a $45 consult instead of $60.
Nice.
I'm mentioning it right now, Lee Cuellar, so I get my $45 consultation.
Okay.
We'll get you a Panera gift card too, Jose. Okay.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay. I'm sorry, Cedric, you have another question?
No, thank you.
All right, well, I think that concludes it all. Thank you very much. Oh, I have a question here. I didn't let me answer from Josue. What is the grace period for LA City? By when is all the rent due? So I don't think I'm understanding that question. If it's for the rent relief help or for the renter?
That is, so LA City's doing its own thing, right?
Right.
And I know that we have 25% that's due, it seems like whatever new date, but I think it previously was like 12 months out. They had the 12 months to pay the remaining balance. Is that still the case, or has that changed?
Good question. So a phase one for LA City is due by, it's already expired. It was 12 months later. So from August 2020 to August 2021. However, due to this extension of the bill, landlords cannot go after it until now after November 1st for phase one. For phase two, LA City and unincorporated LA are not allowed to make their own rules. So for phase two, they have to follow state law. So state law right now says that tenants have to respond to the rent relief application within 21 days from receiving that 15-day notice. It's weird, they call it 15-day notice, but it does not expire in 15 days, guys. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to simplify it. So let's say you have a renter in LA City, Josue, and you gave them the 15-day notice. It's 21 days later, and they have not responded to the rent relief or issued you the hardship, then you could continue with an eviction. Let's say they did respond to the hardship and they did respond to the rent relief. They don't have to pay the 25% until October 1st as a lump sum. I hope that answered your question.
Another question.
Yes.
What's the standard buyout price?
For us, what we charge at $395
Or I
for
think
the buyout.
No, for
the tenant.
For a tenant.
Yeah.
You know, really depends per area. LA City, for example, there's a standard relocation fee is $22,000. It just went up this week. If the renter owes a lot of money, I would counter that. Like, technically, you're living your rent relief as your relocation, but I'm still willing to give you $3,000 for the keys if you move out in 60 days. But if you move out earlier in 45 days, I'll give you a cash bonus of $1,000. So I like to add a cash bonus incentive for them to move out sooner, because they will move out sooner. We've had a couple, this week, we had 3 of them that moved. They even called to say if they could get an extra day and still get the cash out bonus. I'm like, yes, because, you know, to them, they just feel empowered to get more money.
Paulina, what about seniors and disabled folks or long-term tenants? Is it even more than the 22,000?
Every area is different. LA City, the max is 22K. But if you're doing a permit through LA City, for example, and you have a senior or a disabled person that has been there for more than 10 years, they have life tenancy protection. They won't give you the permit unless you do an Alice Act removal, which that's the last thing you want to do. You know, investors do that because they got it like that. It's a lot of money.
Right. Well, it just, you know, Cedric, to your question, a bunch of investors, they're just like, they plug in the cost of removing tenants into their spreadsheet. And if it makes sense to spend $22,000 or $30,000 per unit, then they buy the property.
Right.
Now, for example, you have a property in Montebello. Montebello has no relocation requirements besides a 1 month free of rent. Mm-hmm. If it's a duplex, for example, you wouldn't offer $22K in an area like that. And, you could offer $3K, and to them and a waiver of rent, and to them it's a huge plus. So really, and we have some Santa Monica, Venice. The biggest buyout I did was in a property in Venice beachfront. They wanted to, clients from England wanted to do a new hotel, which is already there actually. They paid out this person $120K. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah, to them it made sense. They were going to make more money Airbnb than in Venice.
Yeah, for sure. Venice is crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Prices are unbelievable.
Yes. And the market, like I have a lot of clients from China, Hong Kong, New York. I mean, it's like us Californians going to Vegas. Everything is cheap. We want to buy condos like it's monopoly money, right? That's them, California for them.
I have one more question.
Yes.
If we try to buy out a tenant, do we have to yank our application for the rent reimbursement through the city, LA City?
Great question. Thanks to this new extension of the law, no, you're still entitled to receive that money. So as long as the tenant cooperates. So that is why we're now adding in the buyouts, that the tenant does need to cooperate with the rent relief program as part of the buyout. So the landlord is not out on years of rent.
Would the tenant not feel inclined to get a buyout, or would they feel inclined to get a bigger buyout because they feel like the property owner will still get rent relief anyways?
Possibly, but my counter to that would be, once we get the money, we could talk.
Okay.
It's not a done deal until the money's here. How they say in Spanish, no cuentes los pollos todavía, los pollitos.
Oh, Paulina, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time today. If there aren't any other questions, I guess.
I know. I think I overstated my welcome. Thank you guys for hearing me out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paulina, hopefully we'll see you real soon.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'll go see you soon. I want to go dive in your pool.
Why not? Come on over.
I know. I'll text Blanca.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.